Hi, this is Arthur, and this is a summary of the quests The Moon Bathed Deep, The Still Waters Flow, From Dusk to Dawn in Byakuyakoku, That Which Our Ancestors Entrusted, Erebos' Secret, and Aphotic Diffusal released in Genshin Impact version 2.1 through 2.5. Together, these world quests and event story quests form the main story behind Enkanomiya. The traveler is walking around Watatsumi Island when they meet Tsuyuko, a shrine maiden at the Enkanomiya Shrine. Tsuyuko tells them the deep pool in front of the Enkanomiya Shrine is the entrance to Enkanomiya. The ancestors of Watatsumi Island's people came from a place called Byakuyakoku. As it was underground, their ancestors relied on the light from a large tower called the Dainichi Mikoshi to protect them from the dragon air of the depths. Side note, dragon air of the depths are also known as baptismal vishaps. That was until a few thousand years ago when the Watatsumi Omikami defeated the Dragonair of the Depths and led them to Watatsumi Island as their new home. Side note, the Watatsumi Omikami refers to Orobashi, the great serpent god of the Watatsumi people who was killed by the Electro Archon and whose skeleton is found on Yashiori Island. Byakuyakoku's name was subsequently changed to Enkanomiya. A problem that arose was that Enkanomiya somehow absorbed the spirit of Watatsumi Island and bleached its soil. Left alone, Watatsumi Island would eventually become a barren desert. To stop this, every several centuries someone must break the barrier blocking Enkanomiya, head down, and retrieve a special branch of coral. Then, the Watatsumi Goryo Matsuri ritual must be performed. This problem has arisen again, and Tsuyuko now asks for the traveler's help. Working with Tsuyuko, they successfully unlock Enkanomiya and head underground. They eventually reach Enkanomiya and meet someone named Enjo. Enjo says he is part of the clerical staff sent here to assist them in completing some trials. The heart of the trials concern the Dainichi Mikoshi, the central tower in Enkanomiya. It is protected by a barrier, and they must disable it by retrieving a golden bridle. They get the golden bridle and activate a device which seems to bring ghosts. Enjo explains that these ghosts are called sin shades or shades of Tokoyo. Sin shades are essentially interactive snapshots of a person captured at the moment of their death. One of the Sin Shades then introduces himself as Aru. Aru is here to explain the next step of the trials, which is to restore the Reins of Revival, which requires the Golden Bridle and 3 other fragments. The Reins of Revival is able to control Sin Shades. The traveler goes and retrieves the 3 fragments and returns to Aru. Aru then tells them the Blood Branch Coral needs to be retrieved from special baptismal vishaps located under the Dainichi Mikoshi. Aru also warns of Enjo and says that he is not from Watatsumi. They head down, and after defeating the baptismal vishaps, Enjo appears. Enjo explains that he came to Enkanomiya to find a book called Before Sun and Moon. The book chronicles a time before the gods, where the whole land belonged to a single civilization. Enjo says he is from the Abyss Order and wants this book to prove the gods and Celestia are from beyond this world. He goes on to say the Watatsumi Omikami was sentenced to death for accidentally reading this book. An entire nation was then relocated, the door to the depths was sealed, and that nation was stirred up in an eastern expedition to cover up this truth. Side note, this likely refers to the relocation of people from Enkanomiya to Watatsumi Island, the sealing of Enkanomiya, and the history of conflict between Watatsumi and Narukami Islands. Narukami Island is the headquarters of the Electro Archon and the Shogunate. Enjo then turns into an Abyss Lector and fights the Traveler. The Traveler wins and Enjo leaves. They take the Blood Branch Coral and give it to Tsuyuko. Tsuyuko says they will soon perform the Watatsumi Goryo Matsuri ritual. Afterwards, the traveler returns to Watatsumi Island and Tsuyuko sends them back to Enkanomiya for another set of trials. They head to Enkanomiya and meet a Sin Shade named Eboshi. Eboshi says she was a shrine maiden. Eboshi explains that after the Watatsumi Omikami opened the gates to Watatsumi Island, foreign relations were established with Narukami Island. Because of the influx of foreign visitors and the nature of Sin Shades to disclose secrets of the past, trials were established to keep certain things hidden. That's why the Blood Branch Coral required a trial. Eboshi disagreed with this restriction and was allowed to create a separate trial that would disclose more of Enkanomiya's secrets. Eboshi then offers the traveler this trial and the traveler accepts. The traveler later completes the trial and returns to Eboshi. Eboshi then explains the following. First, the baptismal vishaps are primordial elemental beings adept at evolving and are highly intelligent. The expansion of holy soil is the expansion of their habitat and means the primordial elemental power of the 3 realms is growing stronger. Second, the Watatsumi Omikami entered Enkanomiya long ago and did many great things for its people. Unfortunately, it learned a truth that came from before its own existence and was forced to sacrifice itself. In order to live under the rule of the heavenly principles and the seven archons, the truth of that sacrifice was hidden from the populace. Third, before the archons and the heavenly principles, the whole world had a single unified culture. Later, a great war broke out and Enkanomiya was plunged into the ocean depths. The heavenly principles did not want people to remember how things used to be, so the people of Enkanomiya could not return to the surface. However, the powers of prohibition later receded, which is how the Watatsumi Omikami first entered Enkanomiya. Lastly, the Dainichi Mikoshi was constructed by the sage Abrax and has a few other functions besides lighting up the darkness. Side note, Abrax is also known as Abaraku. Sometime later, the Watatsumi Goryo Matsuri ritual is performed and the traveler returns to Kokomi. Kokomi tells him the ritual only briefly paused the holy soil expansion and it continues to spread. Darkness has also enveloped Enkanomiya and monsters have started attacking. Kokomi asks them for help and the traveler agrees. They meet with Tsuyuko, who confirms everything Kokomi said. Tsuyuko also mentions a masked shrine maiden named Tsumi who also appeared in Enkanomiya. Tsumi somehow performed something called a Sento ceremony, creating a safe zone for wounded soldiers. There's no record of a Tsumi in Watatsumi Island, and the ceremony she performed seems to be one that can only be performed in Enkanomiya. Kokomi then gives them a fragmented accessory and says it is one of 3 fragments. Kokomi hopes they can reunite it with the other 2 in Enkanomiya. The traveler then heads down to Enkanomiya and the Dainichi Mikoshi. Once there they meet Tsumi, who explains the people of Enkanomiya believe there are 3 realms, the Vishap realm, the human realm, and the void realm. The darkness spreading through Enkanomiya is from the void realm and hurts humans and Vishaps. Side note, the void realm is the abyss, where the abyss order is from. Tsumi says the Vishap realm is the realm of primordial, elemental beings and is often referred to as the light realm. The 7 sovereigns of the light realm are the 7 foremost elemental dragons at the pinnacle of raw and primitive elemental forces. Tsumi then asks to work together to stop the darkness, but the traveler decides to speak to some soldiers first. After talking to some soldiers, they learn that under the mask, Tsumi has snake eyes, a distinguishing characteristic of the vassals of Watatsumi. Legend has it that the vassals of Watatsumi were half human, half snake and helped their ancestors fight the baptismal Vishaps. They also learn that Tsumi likely holds a piece of the fragmented accessory. The traveler eventually decides to work with Tsumi and she gives them the Bokuso box which can drive away darkness. Tsumi explains that the Watatsumi Goryo Matsuri ritual is used to awaken the Watatsumi Omikami's second familiars, the Sangha Coralia. The Sangha Coralia are creatures that can break down the raw, primitive elemental energy of holy soil into the milder forms in the human realm. The darkness of the void realm is currently stopping this ecological change. Using the Bokuso box to dispel the darkness should allow the ecological change to continue. Tsumi also tells him about how this all started. An Abyss adherent, likely Enjo, learned about the 3 realms and the 3 towers and started using the towers to disseminate Abyss energy. The traveler must now go to each of the 3 towers and activate something called the Light Realm Chisel, which will let in energy of the Light Realm. The traveler does exactly that and returns to Tsumi. Once there, they learn there is darkness gathering in the Dainichi Mikoshi, and Tsumi says it's because of Enjo. The traveler gets ready for a fight and heads down to the library and finds Enjo. They fight, and after beating Enjo, Enjo talks about a legend where some Vishaps evolved into human forms. This gave rise to a line of Vishaps that were indistinguishable from people, known as Vishap people. Enjo says that Tsumi is one of those Vishap people and is trying to get revenge on Enjo since he betrayed the Vishaps. Enjo originally allied himself with the Vishaps, saying he'd plunge Enkanomiya into darkness so the Vishaps could rescue those trapped under the Dainichi Mikoshi. Side note, this refers to the Vishaps the traveler beat up earlier to get the Blood Branch Coral. In return, they would allow the Abyss Order passage through their territory and let them rebuild the 3 towers. Unfortunately, the darkness from the Abyss is harmful to the Vishaps, though Enjo already knew that. Enjo says that once Tsumi is done with the traveler, she will use the Dainichi Mikoshi to suppress the Sangha Coralia and create darkness to protect the Vishaps. In fact, they are probably rescuing the imprisoned Vishaps as they speak, and if they do, there will be no more Blood Branch Corals for the future. Enjo tells them if they want to save Watatsumi, they must use the mechanism he left behind to dispel the darkness in the Dainichi Mikoshi. Enjo leaves, but not before giving them another piece of the fragmented accessory that he found at the Dainichi Mikoshi. The traveler heads to the Dainichi Mikoshi. Once there, they use Enjo's mechanism and it seems to work. They then head down under the Dainichi Mikoshi and fight off a bunch of vishaps. Afterwards, they look around and it seems some of the baby vishaps were rescued while the older ones were left behind. Side note, this likely means there will be no more Blood Branch corals going forward. They head back up and see Tsumi again. Tsumi says the Dainichi Mikoshi can somehow obey her thoughts and that destroying it will help the vishaps, yet for some reason she can't bring herself to do it. The traveler then gives her the 2 other fragmented accessories and Tsumi combines them with her own to form a pendant. Since the 2 the traveler gave her from the human world, Tsumi is almost certainly a human. Tsumi then says that she grew up with the vishaps, so she is a vishap, and leaves without destroying the Dainichi Mikoshi. They then meet up with Kokomi, who explains the 3 pieces of the pendant were originally given to the Dainichi Mikoshi, the Enkanomiya line, and the vassals of Watatsumi. The intent was that the common folk, the officials, and the divine vassals would hold each other accountable. Since then, only the common folk have flourished while the others declined, so there's no point in having the pendant anymore. Kokomi goes on to explain that Vishap people are a myth as there is no evidence of their existence. Tsumi was likely the last vassal of Watatsumi. Vassals of Watatsumi are familiars of the Watatsumi Omikami and used to be half human and half snake. Over time, they became almost entirely human except for their eyes. Long ago, the Watatsumi Omikami exhausted its power in order to create Watatsumi Island. After that, it grew weaker and no more vassals of Watatsumi were born. Watatsumi's records do discuss the very last one of the vassals of Watatsumi. All hopes were placed onto her as she was to be a bridge between vishaps and humans. Unfortunately, when she was an infant, her and her guardian were attacked by some vishaps and her whereabouts have been unknown ever since. Most think she died, but some think she was raised by the vishaps. Kokomi hopes that since the conflict between vishaps and humans is now over, Tsumi will find her own way to wherever she thinks she belongs. As for the Blood Branch coral, the holy soil problem is resolved for now, but Kokomi will have to figure out a new way to counteract it in the future. And that is the end of this quest in this video. If you've liked what you've seen here, please like, comment, and subscribe.